Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Ian Huyett for Cornerstone in support of Senate Bill 552. As Representative Smith said, there have been like a dozen of these biological sex separation bills this year. We support this one specifically because we think it's the legally soundest and most well-crafted of all of the biological sex separation bills. I've read almost all, most of the case law in this area from around the country, from certainly circuit courts of appeals and a lot of federal district courts over the last couple of years. And it does matter whether a law like this is well crafted or not. I think a lot of legislators are fatalists about this, and they think all the liberal jurists are going to find you have to use gender identity alone, and then they're just going to kind of layer their jurisprudential reasoning on top of that. And even if that's mostly true, it's not entirely true. We've seen over the past few years a number of judges appointed by Obama or Clinton or Biden who have acknowledged the legitimacy of biological sex separation in published opinions. So it's important to have a well-crafted law, regardless of the politics. And one of the major things that makes this law more well-crafted than other similar bills is it doesn't try to get into a legal code-like definition of biological sex based on birth certificates or genetic characteristics. Having read a lot of cases, I have never seen a law where having an exhaustive definition like that helped a state succeed in its biological sex separation policy. And on the other hand, I've read many, many cases where the attempt to create an exhaustive legal code-like definition of biological sex resulted in bills like this being tangled up in their own web in an unnecessary way that undermined the bill. So this bill takes a more elegant, common sense approach that we think will fare better in the courts. And for that reason, we would ask you to pass this bill.
All right, thank you. Questions for this witness? Representative Perez.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my question. Are you aware, I think it's NYU Hospital in New York City has stopped doing any surgery for biological sex changes, and multiple doctors have come forward stating their profound regret for having doing it?
I'm not aware of that, Representative, but that doesn't surprise me because I think in multiple areas we see kind of a collapse in the elite consensus in this country around gender ideology. And I think you especially see it in the legal arena. You have liberal jurists, like I mentioned, who are increasingly acknowledging the legitimacy of upholding biological sex, and even organizations like the ACLU, who've appeared on many of these bills over the past few years. They now in court make much more moderate arguments than they used to make a few years ago, and I think that's because the consensus is shifting.
Other questions? Yes, Representative Horgan.
Well, I won't get in the ACLU. There is a person from the ACO sitting behind you, may or may not fill out a pink cards. My question is, what exactly is the enforcement mechanism? So we're supposed to, it's in the chapter about the Commission on Human Rights. So what exactly is somebody who feels that they're aggrieved because there's biological males whether in the ladies' room or whatever? So what's the enforcement mechanism if this law gets passed? Like, how does the Commission on Human Rights even deal with these things?
The Commission on Human, thank you, Representative. The Commission on Human Rights has no basis under this bill to initiate any kind of investigation for a reported violation of the language in this bill. There is no enforcement mechanism because this bill is a clarification that certain conduct is not prohibited. So it removes enforcement. It doesn't create any additional enforcement.
Right. Other questions for this witness? Yes, Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my question. I have daughters, and I would do anything to protect them, even today. My question is, then I don't understand, why is it wrong wanting to protect biological females?
Well, I think what we would see, on bills like this in years past, and what we tended to see in courts, especially 5 to 10 years ago, is the other side of this issue would begin their argument by saying, this is a case about transgender girls. And that phrase, transgender girls, which kind of assumes that we have a certain kind of gender ideology conception of what sex is, and the female sex includes both transgender and cisgender females. Once you start with that conclusion, that premise, you built in the conclusion that separation based on biological sex has to be prohibited. So I think the reason is that particular premise, that gender ideological premise. And once you recognize that there is, in addition to gender identity, such a thing as biological sex, and that we've always differentiated between the two just fine in all kinds of contexts, then you can see that that premise doesn't make any sense.